Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Fatboyz Dynasty podcast presented by Fantasy Holics. As always, Bo and Brant coming at you. Today, we're going to kick you off with some hot takes, some Fatboy hot takes. We're also going to break down the Thursday night games. Thursday night game, it is only one game. Talk about some Dynasty players to keep an eye on. And then we're going to talk about a couple guys to really keep your eye on as this first week comes to see maybe they're on waivers in yours. Maybe you want to get a head start on looking at waivers and start moving into filling out the rest of your roster as the season goes. Just trying to stay ahead of your competition. Bo, you got anything you want to add?
Yeah, Brant. So first of all, before we get into these hot takes. The biggest thing with fantasy is you either win or lose your fantasy season within the first few weeks of the season. You have to be willing to throw your research out the window early and often. You can't fall in love with stuff you read in camp. You can't fall in love with stuff you read in the off season or whatever, and not stay with the times. If you think Cordero Patterson's going to be the running back in Atlanta and quickly it becomes Tyler Algier, you got to be able to move off of that. If as guys come available on the waivers, you got to be quick. That's what separates winners from the rest of everybody else in fantasy football is getting off of player evaluation when you're wrong. Don't hold on to that last straw. Don't hold out hope. With that being said, Brant, let me tell you something that really drives me nuts. All right, you're fat, I'm fat. When I go to a restaurant that I've never been to before, and I'm looking over that menu, all right. And I can't find anything that looks good, and the waitress or waiter comes to the table, and you put in that panic order, and you say, okay, give me the whatever it ends up being, okay? And you sit there, and immediately you have buyer's remorse. As soon as the waitress walks away, you realize, man, I should have looked at that menu better. This sounded good or that sounded good, and I got stuck with this. And you're asking everybody at your party that you're with, hey, will you trade me? Nobody wants to trade, right? So the food comes and sits in front of you, and you're staring at it, and it's just the most bland thing you've ever seen. What do, Brant? You got to find something to get some flavor. You look at the salt, the pepper, that don't help. Worcestershire, that ain't helping everything. A1 sauce may not help everything. You know what the go-to is, Brant? What helps with just about every single thing when you get a bland meal? Hot sauce.
Absolutely.
Spicy, hot. And that's what these hot takes are going to be. They're going to start off as, okay, here's a couple of dabs I'm putting on to hopefully make this taste better. Getting increasingly to, okay, maybe I did one too many of these. I've drank 6 bottles or 6 glasses of water. I need to slow down on the hot sauce. All right. So I'm going to start us off with my low simmer, Brant. Okay. And again, my low simmer is in, I think this is very, very plausible to happen. I didn't buy into the hype with this guy like everybody else did on the off season. It's Marquez Hollywood Brown, and I think he's going to finish outside of wide receiver 2 territory. All right, I think he's going to start out very strong. Okay, and then as soon as DeAndre Hopkins comes back, Trey McBride starts to get up to speed with that offense. I think Rondale Moore takes another step forward this year, and I think eventually it finishes out with Marquez Hollywood Brown outside of the top 24 wide receivers.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I didn't buy into the hype. That team is, I mean, we saw what Zach Ertz did when Hopkins went down due to injury. They leaned on Hopkins a lot, or not Hopkins, they leaned on Zach Ertz a lot more. I know Hollywood Brown's coming into this team as the new guy. I mean, I know he's not really new to the NFL, but he's the new guy on this team. Rondell's still been there. Ertz has been there now half a year. AJ Green's back. Hopkins is going to come back in week 6, 7. Mm-hmm. So week 7. I just don't see that. I see him as the outside looking in. And I don't even know if he starts off as hot as you may think he might. I think he may start out slow. I think he's going to be that field stretcher guy, but I really feel like Moore and Ertz may be the guy that Murray really leans on because those guys are just. They're not burning the defense, taking the top off of them. They are getting the possession of the ball and gaining their own yards.
Yeah, this is one that I was very quick to pump the brakes on for me. First of all, owning Hopkins in that offense last year was frustrating at times because of how good he was and how little the production added up to how good he is. Let alone taking somebody who I had to probably trade for or draft pretty high to get, and then that same man in DeAndre Hopkins comes back after 7 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and hop into my low simmer. And this one here, I may be the easy way out, but it definitely is very plausible to happen. I took Drake London is going to be this year's Chase/Jefferson. He'll be the best rookie wide receiver in fantasy for this year. I'm not 100% sold that he's going to be the best in dynasty outlooks, but for this season, Drake London's the best guy to be drafting out of this rookie class in redraft leagues. He has a clear shot to be the number one there. The only other real person competing for targets right now is Kyle Pitts. And I'm sorry, Pitts really isn't competing. Drake's competing with Pitts for targets. But Drake London has such a clear, easy path to be that go-to guy for Atlanta.
Yeah, as a Falcons fan, Brant, it almost pains me to hear you say that because, in years past it's been Julio, Ridley, Roddy White. And to have a rookie come in the door and be our wideout one, it was a hard pill to swallow. But yes, as long as Kyle Pitts is in town and Kyle Pitts is healthy, Kyle Pitts should be the dude. And then Drake London will get what's left and then leave a few crumbs for everybody else. But yeah, I mean, to say he's going to be this year's Chase or Jefferson, I want to temper expectations a little bit. I think he's going to be very good. I think he's definitely has a high enough upside to finish as the top wideout in that class. But to get to that Chase status or Jefferson status from those two's rookie years, he's going to need a great year, and that means Marcus Mariota is going to have to play well because Justin Jefferson had Kirk Cousins, who was established, and then we all know what Chase had last year in Burrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to my medium heat. That temperature you turn on when you're still walking around the house and you still got to get the water to boil. Or, those few dabs that you put on the food that just really spice it up just a little bit, not making you dive into your water. Kareem Hunt and Alexander Mattison, in my mind, and I do believe, will both get traded somewhere throughout this season to a running back needy team. Example, Atlanta, Houston, and they will make a quick impact with their new teams and win some fantasy leagues. Madison without Cook last year, he saw 26 carries. In one game he saw 26 carries, 112 yards, 25 carries, 113 yards, 22 carries, and 90 yards. Those are just the rushing stats. Not to mention he added 15 receptions for 700. Sorry, I apparently can't read my own writing. And then we all know what Kareem Hunt does whenever Nick Chubb's out. So yeah, I definitely could see these guys coming out and making an impact right away.
Yeah, too, specifically for Dynasty, if you have Cook or you have Nick Chubb and you have the handcuffs, the value of those handcuffs becomes a lot more than the handcuffs afterwards. You're talking massive trade bait if either one of those two guys get moved anywhere. So that's definitely something to keep your eye on. We've heard rumblings already this offseason that the Vikings are entertaining phone calls. There was those rumors that Kareem Hunt demanded a trade and then still reported right back on into camp. So it'll be interesting to see if either of those guys move this year. And I tend to believe that there may be some traction to one of those guys, if not both of them, going someplace this year. So my medium take is one that is, again, I'm pretty passionate about this one, Brant. Not so much that I think it's outlandish, but enough that I defend it. This may be a hill I'm willing to die on, so to speak. And it's that Kirk Cousins is going to finish as a top 10 quarterback in fantasy football this year. Again, it's not that insane to say that because he's done it 3 times in his career. And the last 2 years he's finished it as 11 in PPR formats. But this is a man that is so often disrespected when it comes to fantasy football, even though he has, and what we typically look for in quarterbacks is what are their weapons. Well, it'd be hard to find a better wide receiving core than Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. There's a few in the league, but those quarterbacks are also going very, very high, relatively speaking, in comparison to Kirk Cousins, who just so happens that Kirk Cousins is being drafted in the back half of the 12th round right now. So, 11th round. Kirk Cousins is being drafted in the 11th round, Brant. So that's where you and I, in past years, have looked for a quarterback after we filled the rest of our roster, our lineup, if you will, punting on the possession to add more depth at running back or wide receiver, those positions that are hard to make up ground. And I'm getting a guy that late that could potentially be a top 10 quarterback. And again, for the sole fact that he has Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, I'm putting Kirk Cousins as a top 10 quarterback this year.
Absolutely, especially if Jefferson does what he said he wants to do and go over 2,000 yards, definitely. And you're also not to mention he has Cook in the backfield too, getting the yak yards, helping him get those touchdowns, receptions, touchdowns. Absolutely, this is a very, very, very good possible take that could happen.
So let's get into the spicy of the hot takes, the spicy ones that are so much heat behind them, so many Scoville units of heat that you have to sign the waiver form to try, right? We all know the challenge: go to Buffalo Wild Wings, sign the waiver, get the hottest wings that you like sniff and tear up, and you're like, okay, I changed my mind, bring me the mild or whatever. We all know what I'm talking about here. So these ones are so wild that they probably won't happen, but I will stand on this one and argue again, and that is that Cooper Kupp, Brant, finishes outside of the top 15 wideouts this year. Allen Robinson's coming into town, all right? Allen Robinson at this point in his career is better than Robert Woods was last year with Cooper Kupp. Matthew Stafford's got that elbow injury. We don't know how serious it is, how much it's going to hamstring things. We've got the two-headed monster in the backfield. Well, I guess two-headed monster in the backfield with Henderson and Akers there, and Higbee's still in town. Van Jefferson's starting to come on a little bit. It's going to be really interesting to see how that offense works with the addition of Allen Robinson, who in my opinion is a very, very strong candidate for a true number one. A lot of places he goes. Obviously coming in here with Cooper Kupp, not so much, but he's going to take into Cooper Kupp's work, and his volume's going to go down significantly. I think he finishes outside the top 15.
Absolutely. That's something. That's a hot take I definitely could get behind too. Now this one, my hot take, I know we discussed this, and I know you're not going to hop on this bandwagon. You're not going to hop on this train with me. I've rode this train since draft day, and I still shed a tear every time I talk about where he got drafted to. Rashad Bateman will finish as a top 15 wideout in fantasy. And the reason why, he's got the willingness to work across the middle of the field where Lamar loves to throw. Lamar cannot throw to the sidelines for anything. He'd rather throw in the middle of the field. Well, that's where Bateman works the best. Bateman's a big-bodied guy who will be target-friendly for Lamar Jackson. And he started to come on. I know he started slow and everything else coming off his injury. This guy is now getting in. He's coming in. He got a full off-season work with Lamar. I know it's still Lamar. And there's 145 vacated targets or more than 145 vacated targets. And Lamar was able to sustain Brown as the number 22 wide receiver last year in PPR. So I really feel like Bateman has that opportunity to take one more step forward and finish inside the top 15.
That is a spicy take. You're going to need Lamar Jackson to hold out and then trade for Jimmy Garoppolo or something wild like that for me to potentially be on board with it. I just think that Mark Andrews is too dominant of a force, and Lamar Jackson likes to run too much for that to happen. It'd be interesting if it does happen. That means Lamar takes a step forward in his game, which he should. It's contract time, right? Let's show I can put up 4,000 yard passing season or 40 passing touchdowns. He's going to need something like that from Lamar for that to come to fruition.
Absolutely. My other hot take wasn't more fantasy. It was more of a hot take I would rather see of the mustache Savior, come to Seattle and save my Seahawks, please.
You just go to the mall when Santa comes to town and sit on his lap and ask him. Right? So, Brett, if it's all the same to you, I've got on the agenda for today. We got a couple questions from some fans that we're going to take. All right. Before we get into that, though, I want to talk about these guys that we want to keep an eye on this season. All right, some guys that we think that are available in a lot of leagues. And again, a lot of this is, again, when we talk about this, is dynasty related, right? Again, it may be these guys could help you in a redraft league too. That's not to say they couldn't. But the best way, again, to stay in front of your league mates is to kind of know in your head things that you want to watch play out as the games are going on over the course of the weekend. And the guy that I want to talk about is Rex Burkhead. And, Brant, I'm going to tell you as I say this doesn't taste good coming out of my mouth, okay? It feels like my taste buds are still gone from the spicy takes, and I'm throwing stuff out there trying to get some taste back in my mouth. Rex Burkhead's 32 years of age, all right? I get it. It's not appealing. It's not sexy, okay? But Marlon Mack's gone. The Houston Texans are talking up Rex Burkhead. He's going to have a role. Okay, and here's the big thing that why I think Rex Burkhead's going to be somewhat relevant, at least for a few weeks this year. I don't trust Dameon Pierce. I'm not buying in on the hype. I just don't get it. I don't see it. He was, nothing special in his time in Florida. I know we've seen his draft stock rise from my goodness, the double-digit rounds to as high as 6th, 5th round now he's going. I just don't see Dameon Pierce being that guy. And for those reasons, Rex Burkhead's somebody of interest to me because he's out there. Again, he's projected to have work. I'd assume he'd have a lot of third down work. And, looking at the Houston Texans offense from last year, they're going to be in some third and long situations. And if Rex Burkhead can get out there and be targeted 5, 6, 7 times a game, and this is a guy you're able to, you're watching ahead of time, and maybe it takes your league mates a couple weeks to realize that the Dameon Pierce hype train isn't all it's cracked up to be. It's missing a few wheels, having a hard time staying on track. You could grab this, Rex Burkhead and be ahead of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see that. I definitely could see him taking over that backfield. I'm sorry, I little coughed up over here. So a guy I want to talk about is a guy that could make an impact right away with the injuries behind his, with the other two running backs. One's on the PUP, and one is coming off a torn ACL and has shown a lot of limp and not been fully exploded, showing full explosion in camp and preseason this year. I know this is going to sound disgusting when I say this name. Mike Davis of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I'm saying this because I know they added Kenyon Drake, so it's going to take Kenyon Drake a little bit to catch up to speed. This guy Mike Davis is a guy that could instantly get on the field week 1, week 2, maybe week 3 while Kenyon Drake is catching up and make an impact. We saw what he could do in 2020 when he was behind a decent offensive line there in Carolina. Then he went over to, last year he went to Atlanta. Well, you can vouch for me. Atlanta's line is nothing to write home about. It's almost as good as a wet piece of paper in front of them. It's almost as good. It's almost as bad as Seattle's offensive line when Russ was behind them. So, yeah, Mike Davis never lived up to that 5th round draft capital. This is a guy that now he's getting behind one of the better lines in the NFL, one of the most rush-friendly offenses in the NFL. This is a guy that definitely could come in the first few weeks and make an impact on your fantasy team. So if you struggle with injury or you own J.K. Dobbins, this is a guy that you may want to go out and get because he's probably going to be the one for at least the first week or two as Kenyon Drake plays catch-up with that team.
Yeah, Mike Davis is one that I struggle with because a lot of people were toting him to be the savior of Atlanta's backfield last year, and it just never worked out for Mike in Atlanta. I know Mike wanted to be in Atlanta. He's from that area. He wanted to do well there. He sent a very heartfelt message to the team after he left about, hey, I'm sorry it didn't work out, whatever. But when Mike Davis signed in Baltimore, Brand, I remember you and I having a conversation. We were both laughing pretty hysterically about him being there. But here we are, the week of kickoff, the week of the start of the season, and we're talking about him having a potential role, and he does have a potential role sitting right there in front of him. It's going to take Kenyon Drake a few weeks to get that playbook, under his belt after just getting traded there or signed there after he got cut by the Raiders. I'm sorry. But Mike Davis has been there. He's been working with the ones all off season due to the injuries. He's got the playbook down. I look for Mike Davis to have a pretty good start to the season here. And if, again, he's probably available in 80+% of leagues. And that's a guy that you could help, your first 2 weeks, especially if you're a J.K. Dobbins owner and maybe you're weak or short at running back depth. This may be a guy you could plug in and play and not miss many points, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Those are two guys that we really think are good guys to keep an eye out and help you out with the first couple weeks. All right, so now we're going to get into the Thursday night game. We're going to talk about the Thursday night game. We're going to talk about some dynasty implications, fantasy implications of this game. NFL did us good.
Hang on a minute here, Brant. I think you're showing the excitement of all of us fantasy football guys when you're wanting to just jump. Let's just talk a minute about how beautiful it is to be back. Live football, real meaningful football games taking place this week. I can't be any more excited about it. All this off-season prep everybody does, the cleaning the house, putting the draft boards together, having everybody over, making a mess of your house, getting yelled at by your significant others, the countless, times when you're sitting in the toilet for 45 minutes because you're watching game film on an incoming rookie. This is what it all comes down to, and I just want to say I'm excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the NFL did us good with these first two Thursday night games. Next week is the Chargers and the Chiefs. This week, two high-powered offenses with the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Rams kicking off the NFL season, kicking off our fantasy season for the next 17-plus weeks, 18-plus weeks. Every Sunday is now spoken for. It is great to have a set schedule.
It is. You are not wrong, sir.
So these are two high-powered offenses going head-to-head. Two top five-ish defenses. Buffalo scares me a little bit with the banged up they have in their secondary. Anyone that is a football or a fantasy fan should be super excited to watch this game. These are two of the best teams in the NFL going at it. Now, and we finally get to see the first-team offenses take the field with both of them. Now, I look for this game to start a little slow. I know, we're talking the Rams and the Bills starting slow. Neither first-team offense or defense took a whole lot of preseason snaps, preseason work. So I look for them to be a little rusty, a little flat-footed over the first couple drives. So obviously the first couple drives may be a little blah, but definitely we'll get more into it. I look this for be a real shiny game. First two names on the board to look at. Gabe Davis and Dawson Knox are two dynasty guys that I will be keeping my eye on in this game. I want to see if the Gabe Davis hype is true. I am not quite jumped aboard that train of the Gabe Davis. And Dawson Knox, he had his flashes last year. I'm real curious to see if this happens and he stays the course to making himself a top 10 tight end in Dynasty. And the reason I have those two names is that Ramsey should be shadowing Diggs most of this game. And so it's going to be a slower game for Diggs. I'm not saying bench Diggs. You don't bench Diggs. Start your studs. Don't overthink it.
Especially in week one.
Yeah, especially in your week one. And then the other part of the Bills offense, that's what I'm going to hit first. We're just going to hit all the Bills offense, then we'll get into the Rams offense. The other part of the Bills offense is that three-headed, two-headed, however you want to put in the backfield in Singletary and James Cook, Josh Allen, Zach Moss is probably going to be a healthy scratch, but you may have to see a little sprinkle of Zach Moss there. So this is a good chance to see how this backfield is really starting to take shape in season.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. One of my dynasty leagues, I was able to get James Cook in my rookie league or rookie draft. So I have a reason to watch this game more so than just being excited for football to be back. But I'm definitely going to be keeping a close eye on that backfield. Who looks good? Who looks like maybe they're not, ready or whatever the case may be. That's the backfield I'm definitely interested in. I'm also, Brant, not buying in completely on the Gabe Davis hype train. I mean, listen, the dude exploded in a playoff game. What's that do for my fantasy season? Not a whole lot of anything. Last year I know he didn't do a whole lot to write home about either. Again, it was his rookie season going into year 2. Maybe he takes that step forward. But I just think it may have, excuse me, that was year 2, I think. I see you giving me that look over there. I think you're right. I got ahead of myself. I think it was year 2. But maybe he takes that final step forward. It used to be wide receivers took 3 years to really hit their groove. If he does, I'm going to look like a fool because I own him nowhere. I really don't own a whole lot of Bills or Rams anywhere, which is sad with how good both offenses are. But nonetheless, this is a game that I expect the scoreboard to be flashing quite a bit here. I just don't know if it's going to be out of that Buffalo Bills backfield much.
Absolutely. So let's jump over to let's stay with this Bills offense and tell me if I miss anybody. But your obvious starts, you start Josh Allen, you start Stefon Diggs, maybe shy away from the Gabe Davis. Yeah, I think you start Dawson Knox, and maybe wait to see how
Knox you start.
And so I think Davis and that backfield, you really kind of let those guys sit on your bench. Give them a week of rest and see where that goes.
If you have that luxury.
Yes.
Again, if you don't have that option, you hope for the best. You play the best, your best option, and hope for the best. But yes, you're bona fide. Set them and forget them. You're talking Allen, Diggs, and Dawson Knox there in Buffalo.
Absolutely. So let's jump over to the Rams. We get to see how much Allen Robinson really takes away from Cooper Kupp this first week. And with the banged up Bills secondary, I think it's going to be an Allen Robinson game, and I really think you really look like you're going to hit the nail on the head with that hot take that you put out. And I absolutely love Allen Robinson this game. And this is another backfield that we're trying to see what's going to happen. This is a backfield where I may have to look at this other fat boy here and tell him for the last 2 dang years, you have been right, I have been wrong. Still not ready to say that, but it's starting to become to fruition in that backfield that Henderson may be better than Akers. But let's not forget that rookie coming in. Never mind, I won't even bring him up.
Yeah, when you talk about Darrell Henderson and Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson has been a guy that anytime he's been given the opportunity, he's just excelled. He's looked good. Cam Akers has had his bright spots too, but with what the expectations were that were put on Cam Akers, to his defense, was always just too high priced out of my realm of touching that. And when you can get Darrell Henderson, oftentimes 6-7 rounds later, I think it's starting to get closer with this year. I'm much more interested in Darrell Henderson. And then last year you saw them both get a decent amount of time, and Henderson looked better last year. So I definitely think this could be one that maybe this is the year that it finally, nail in the coffin. It's Darrell Henderson, or maybe it's the other way this year. Darrell Henderson's getting up there in age. Maybe it goes the other way. We'll see. But this is another one that if I own both, I'm taking my gut feel and starting whichever one I think is going to be the guy. If I own one or the other, and you're in a spot where you got to start them, you do it with confidence. I'd say both of them should do okay. But yeah, that's another backfield. I'm really interested to see how that shakes out over the course of the season and the course of Thursday night.
Absolutely. So the guys we're talking, you normally start Kupp, Robinson, Most people that draft Stafford probably don't have a second quarterback, so you'd start Stafford. I think you start Stafford in.
I think where you drafted Akers, if you drafted Akers, you're probably playing Akers as well. I mean, you didn't get Akers cheap enough that he's a luxury option on your bench in most circumstances.
Absolutely. I think you tried to avoid starting either one of their defenses this week, though, in really any league, because I don't see. You can look at me all you want. I've already picked up another waiver claim to make sure I don't have to start them.
Okay, fair enough. So Brent, let's put it out there. What do you think? Who wins? Who loses Thursday? What do you think?
I'm taking the Buffalo Bills, and I'm taking them. It's going to be a field goal game, 3 points or less.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of those games that gets into the 30-point range for each team. It may start slow, but I think towards the end it's going to be trading punches. A couple prize fighters, standing toe-to-toe in the ring, trading blows. And I too tend to lean to the Buffalo Bills, only because, yes, I know the Bills' secondary is a little banged up. Their defense is a little banged up. But these reports on Stafford's elbow haven't been good, and I'm curious to see how much that affects Stafford. Is his accuracy still there? Is he able to get the deep ball? I think maybe we'll get a lot of answers on both of these teams after Thursday. But for this week, I'm taking the Bills.
Absolutely. One final thing to put out for Thursday night games, and you will hear me say this all.
Make sure you have a good spread of food.
Oh, that too.
Oh.
Don't start a flex. Move these guys out of your flex. Give yourself that flexibility come Sunday. You will hear me say it every Thursday or every week. Do not start a Thursday guy in the flex. That is going to hurt you. It may not bite you that week, but it will bite you one week.
Sure.
So we wanted to hit a few Q&As that we got over the past weekend and discuss them a little bit here. I think you got them right there in front of you. What you got there, Bo?
Yeah. So we put out on the Fantasyholics Facebook page asking for some questions. We got a lot of really good questions, but obviously we don't have time on a podcast to discuss them all at length, okay? So the first one I have written down is from Tim Green. Tim Green asks, in a full PPR keeper league, would you take Deebo Samuel and giving up an 8th-round pick or Mark Andrews giving up a 5th round, okay? And this one's really interesting to me, Brant, because last year I was all aboard the Deebo train prior to it leaving station. I know you'll be my witness to that. I don't necessarily want to say I predicted the breakout to the extent that it was, but I said Deebo was coming out, okay? But in this question here that Tim put to us, I think I'm leaning Mark Andrews on the 5th solely because, one, it's so darn difficult in that tight end position if you don't have a premium tight end to catch up on those points, okay? And every single year it seems like at the wide receiver position we're getting different guys to break out. Okay. Now, last year, Deebo Samuel broke out with Jimmy G as quarterback. A lot of passes behind the line of scrimmage, a lot of end arounds. He had a lot of work from the backfield last year. This year, they're saying, and all the camp hype, all the beat writers are saying it's Brandon Ayuk's year. Watch out for Brandon Ayuk. And we have Trey Lance starting at quarterback, who's got a very big arm. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. The one thing I know for certain that didn't change is who's throwing the ball to Mark Andrews. And Lamar Jackson loves him some Mark Andrews. So I'm leaning Mark Andrews. Brant, I'd love to get your take on this question.
Mine's the same thing. It's Mark Andrews. You're getting a guy that's probably a 2nd or 3rd round ADP in most drafts. And you hit the nail on the head. You're getting the top 3 tight end this year. In the 5th round, you don't have to. It's a set it and forget it. Doesn't matter what week it is. It doesn't matter who he's matching up against. You know that you're getting the guy as long as he's healthy. Even if Lamar goes down, you're still getting the guy in that offense. And like you said, the hype of the Brandon Ayuk, the hype of the new Trey Lance run and gun, and all the different weapons out of the backfield there. I don't know if I trust Deebo to produce as well as he did last year. If I knew that was coming, I would definitely lean that way. But I don't see that. I don't see that being repeated this year. I absolutely lean Mark Andrews.
Okay. Good question, Tim, by the way. The last question I have here, Brant, is from Les Collins, okay? And this one was interesting, and when I initially read this question, I was like, man, that don't make no sense. It's an obvious answer, whatever. But then I got to thinking about it, and maybe it's not so obvious, okay? So Les's question is, you have the number 1 pick in Dynasty. After 3 years, all picks reset. So it's a 3-year Dynasty, essentially, and then they redraft, okay? So the question is, who is the number 1 pick for a 3-year Dynasty, and then after 3 years, it doesn't matter? Initially, Brant, my gut said, well, it's Jonathan Taylor, and it's not even close, right? Because Jonathan Taylor's still so young. He's in that offense there in Indy that he's put up the points last year. But then I'm like, man, CMC for 3 years could be nice too, or Saquon Barkley for 3 years could be nice. I don't think I'd take Saquon over Jonathan Taylor, but when you add that 3 years, you only have these guys for 3 years. It's not a 10-year, it's not an 8-year, it's not a 5-year, it's 3 years. I thought, well, maybe it does at least bring up some question for that number 1 pick. What do you think?
I still lean Jonathan Taylor. The offense that he's in, the good offensive line that he's behind. Matt Ryan signed 2 years with them. So you know the stability is going to be there for Jonathan Taylor. You know the work's going to be there. And Christian McCaffrey is definitely a name that I would have in mind. You read that and went all the way through, and I'm sitting here like, yeah, okay, yeah. So, yes, I do see where the question is, but I still lean Jonathan Taylor. I just think the certainty for the next 3 years is good there for Taylor and his youth. So, yeah, I lean Taylor.
Yeah, and, when we talk about CMC, there's really only 2 options with CMC, right? You either draft him and he gets hurt and misses 3/4 of the season, or you pass him up and somebody else drafts him and he explodes, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when you're sitting there with the number 1. I hate drafting first in any kind of a league, whether it be a redraft league, a dynasty. I don't want the first overall pick unless it's the rookie draft. I don't want it because there's just too many. The guy has to finish number 1 at his respective position and at least top 3 in my mind in total fantasy production in order to warrant his pick. So anytime you don't get a guy that finishes that at that spot, it almost kind of makes your pick seem like you wasted a pick. But again, it's a guessing game. And for 3 years, I'd like to think after the end of 3 years, Jonathan Taylor's fantasy numbers for 3 years will be higher than CMC's for 3 years if CMC doesn't stay healthy. Even if he stays healthy, I think it's very close. So, again, another couple of good questions there from those guys. And I know, Brant, this kind of leads us into the next segment, and I'm going to let you talk more about it than I am here. But we're going to start doing a live video stream every Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Most weeks, obviously, there'll be some scheduling conflicts in the future potentially, so we don't want to necessarily tack that horse to the cart before it gets going, but we will answer more questions and have more time to do it on a live video.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is going to be a trial run for us this week, this Sunday. But we're definitely going to hash it out. We're going to figure this out. We want to be there. We want to interact with you guys every Sunday, majority of Sundays, from, like you said, 9 to 10. We'll keep you guys posted if times do change or if we're going to be on late. We're going to broadcast it. We're going to answer we're going to do our best to answer all of your start and sit questions leading up to kickoff every Sunday. Heck, if you guys want to get on there and discuss your food spread, we have no problem discussing food.
No, not only do we not have a problem, we'd be very happy to do so.
Absolutely. And there may be some times you see us cooking it up and getting ready for it. But definitely we want to be there to help you guys get prepared, get them lineups set for Sunday, and win some championships this year.
Yeah, and another thing about this live too, Brant, that I want to put out is, not everybody on a Sunday morning has access to be at the computer. Maybe you're working on a Sunday morning or a TV, you don't have that access to sit and you're waiting for those start sits to drop, so the injuries, who's gonna sit out this week, kind of thing. We hope to be able to address some of those as we're rounding out the live each week, prior to us getting in our chairs with our big boy spreads of food and enjoying the games ourselves. Because again, not only do we want to help you guys win, we want to win our games, to our fantasy lineups, to our matchups. And so, there'll be a lot of things that we discuss. We'll discuss a lot of the games, weather conditions at the stadium that week, indoor, outdoor, things of that nature for you guys to keep in mind too as you're setting your lineups.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also, we'll do our best. Neither one of us is very experienced in the DFS live lineup, but if you do have some of them questions, throw them at us. We'll do our best to help out with that. This is be a great time for Dynasty, redraft, DFS. We'll do our best. Come spend Sunday morning with us. Come talk to us.
You say we'll do our best, but we've been playing DFS for 5+ years here, and we'll give you a direction when it comes to DFS that we'd be willing to put our money where our mouth is there as well.
That's true. Yeah, we just haven't. We're not winning no Golden Goose Prize over here, but I guess we've held our own at some points. We'll definitely talk about anything you guys want to talk about Sunday morning. Come hang out with us. Give us a like. And the Fatboyz are going to do our best to be there every Sunday for you guys.
Absolutely, and there's a good chance that you may see some other guys from the Fantasy Holics hop on in and out of that as the season progresses as well. You've got, again, if you've got IDP questions, maybe Brant and I aren't the guys for that, but Seth Berger certainly is. Don't hesitate to send a message to the Fantasy Holics and say, hey, I want the IDP expert Seth Berger to answer this question. Seth would be more than happy to jump in and do that with you guys. Josh Rodriguez and AJ, who host the Flex, those are guys that could give you definitely some more insight when it comes to redraft leagues. But I think I speak for myself and most of us with Fantasy Holics. All of us are willing and are able and will do our best to help you navigate through the murky waters that are the fantasy football season.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you guys got Dynasty trade questions, don't hesitate to tag us in the Fantasy Holics Messenger, or message us on our own Facebook, and we'll cover them. We would love to cover some questions, 2 or 3 questions every week on the Fatboyz podcast.
Yep, and again, you can get us through the Fantasy Holics Facebook page, or you can get us on the Fatboyz Dynasty podcast page as well. So don't hesitate to reach out through either of those platforms and get a hold of us. We'll do our best.
And as always,
stay hungry
and stay fat, my friends.